All right, this next video is being done to help you with some of the problems that you might be encountering that deal with the percent increase in a word problem situation. It's important to understand here that if I want to find that percent increase, I need to find the amount of change that occurs from the beginning to the end, and I need to divide that by the original amount. And this formula is crucial, or this little example here is crucial in terms of finding the percentage that we're going to deal with. So if we look at our first example here, I've come up with a problem that says, suppose the weight of a child increases from 75 pounds to 90 pounds. What is the percent increase? So if you remember from our formula back here, it says we need the amount of change. So the first thing we need to focus on is the beginning weight is 75 pounds and the ending weight is 90 pounds. So we would need to take 90 and subtract 75 to get our amount of change. And in this case, it looks like our child has changed weight by about 15 pounds. Then, if you remember, the formula says the amount of change, which is 15, should be divided by the original amount, which in this case would be the 75 pounds. And we could certainly grab a calculator. 15 divided by 75 turns out to be 0.2, which would be our decimal, or 2/10. But we want to change it to a percentage. So if you remember, we need to multiply by 100 or simply move the decimal 2 spots to the right. And this should turn out to be an increase of 20%. Thus changing from 75 pounds to 90 pounds, the individual has gained 15 pounds. Dividing that by 75, it tells us that it should be about a 20% gain. If I look at a second example here, in this case, we have an individual selling some items, sells approximately 50 items per day, so is averaging about 50 items per day, improves the marketing, and is able to increase that to about 70 items per day. What is the percent increase? And again, in this case, we need to go back to the original problem that says, let's find the amount of change. So now we're talking about selling 70 items per day, and we'll subtract the 50 that we had to start with, and the amount of change is obviously in this case, it's improved by about 20 items per day. In order to find the percentage of increase, it will be the amount of change, which is 20 items, divided by the original amount, which is right here. Originally, he or she was selling 50 items per day. And if we take 20 divided by 50, we end up with 0.4, which in this case, if we change that to a percentage, turn out to be about 40% increase in this case. So simply finding the percent increase, we simply need to find the amount of change divided by the original amount. Now, I would urge you to look at it that way, simply an easy way to do it. I'm going to give you one other little thought here, and that second thought is, if you want to find the percentage of increase, you can always take the ending amount divided by the beginning amount. So in this case, we could take 90 and we could divide by 75. And again, allowing a calculator to do the work for us. This is going to come back and say 1.2 in terms of an answer. Now, we've got to do a little bit of work to get our answer here, but if we change that to a percentage, that's 120%. And where we have to be careful here is that this doesn't mean that the increase is 120%. This means that we need to think of this 120% as 100% plus 20%, and hopefully everyone's okay that if we add those two percentages together, we would have 120%. This represents the original amount plus an additional 20%. So the amount that it is above 100% ends up being the percent of growth. So in this case, our growth percentage would be the 20%. We simply got that by taking the ending number minus the beginning number. If you don't feel comfortable with that, I would urge you to stay with, hey, let's find the amount of increase, ending number, subtract the beginning number, and let's take that number and divide by the original amount, and that will give us our decimal or our percentage of increase. But you could certainly take the ending amount divided by the beginning amount. I'd look at that a second time here, and if I was to try to use that, the ending amount was 70, the beginning amount was 50. If I divide those, that turns out to be 1.4, which is about, or exactly 140%. which is 100%, and 100% doesn't mean that it's increased that, it means it's all of what it was. 100% meaning if this is what it was, it's all of that, plus an additional 40%. And this is my percentage of increase. It is growing from the 100% that it was, an additional 40%, which matches what I have over here. Hopefully that little video helps you out with finding the percent increase.